Well, hey there. Good morning. This is Joe Van Cleve, and it's a nice rainy day in Albuquerque. Hey, we need all the moisture we can get in the desert Southwest. But it's a couple of days now since we had the first ABQ Type-In, Albuquerque's first public typewriter gathering, and I had a few thoughts I wanted to share with you guys about the Type-In. So stay tuned. The thing that I really enjoyed about the Type-In was meeting all the people. A lot of people that had emailed me, I only knew them through email correspondence. I got to meet in person. I was really amazed at the level of enthusiasm for typewriters, and I think it goes beyond just the typewriter. I think it's about having a public gathering of people who are creative and who are interested in writing. I think there's like this Venn diagram where there's a lot of overlap between just strictly typewriter interest and interest in writing and creativity. And I think going forward, there's the possibility of having some kind of public gatherings that focuses not just on the typewriter aspect of it, but really about the writing part of it, the creative writing aspect. And I don't really know what that means or where that's going, but I really sense there's a latent desire in this community to have some kind of creative gathering for creative people like that. So that's one thought. The other thought that struck me is I was really busy throughout that whole Type-In. It lasted for about 4 hours, and it was like a whirlwind of experience of talking and just interacting. But I realized I did not talk to everybody really. I think I greeted most everybody at first, but I didn't really take the time to talk to everybody. It's almost like I didn't have time. It was so busy and a whirlwind of activity. So I do have regrets of not being able to deeply talk and interact with everybody that came, and I hope if you guys are some of those people that didn't really get a chance to talk with me, I hope we do have an opportunity in the future. But it was very fun. I hope everybody had a sense of belonging and a sense of wanting to do this again. I know some people might have been a little bit shy being in public. I know certain people's personalities are just, you come into a room of strangers, you might have been drawn there due to common activity or common interests like typewriters, but there needs to be a facilitator to help people that are publicly shy to interact. And so maybe there's something I can do in the next Type-In to help an engagement process, an inclusion activity, if you want to call it that. But so that's another thought there. Now, another thing I wanted to mention was how much of value Mr. John Lewis was to this whole process. He deserves a lot of kudos and a lot of credit for some of his behind the scenes work that him and his wife did. And also, let me show you this. John Lewis, which by the way, he has John Lewis Mechanical Antiques and Business Systems. So he is the only remaining typewriter repairman in Albuquerque, and I think he's known in the typewriter circles nationwide here in the United States. Anyways, he had a grab bag of gifts for everybody. And look what I got. Yes, typewriter tins. So this one is a McGregor ribbons. McGregor typewriter ribbons. So if you don't know about this, there's an entire subgenre of collecting typewriter ribbon tins. So back in the old days of typewriters, typewriter ribbons came in metal tins, and they had all this wonderful advertising. And this is McGregor Incorporated Teletype for all machines except model number 28 in Kleinschmidt. Black heavy, and it's an address. It says 2121 K Street, Northwest Federal 34411. There's your phone number. Washington 7 DC. So this was probably around the time of World War II, I'm guessing. And And they probably had the business of supplying ribbons to all those government teletype machines and typewriters. Well, that was one. Oh, and what he did, what John Lewis did, is he put his business card inside of each of these tins. And so I thought that was so cool. A business card gift handout. And oh, by the way, this tin is threaded. It doesn't just snap on, it actually locks down tight so the ribbon seals up a little bit better. I don't know if the ribbon came in a wax paper or cellophane or something. Who knows what kind of wrapper. So here's the other one that I got. Look at that. Herald Square typewriter ribbon. And I probably have the lid on 90 degrees off from what it should be, because when the title is right side up, the back should also be right side up. So, isn't that cool? It says, important to obtain the most satisfactory results, it is recommended that the operator of the machine thoroughly cleanse the type as soon as the write shows the least tendency to become irregular. F.W. Woolworth Company. So this is a typewriter tin sold by Woolworths. Now, and there's even the W Woolworths symbol, huh? Isn't that cool? So this is interesting, the Woolworths tin, because my father, who was a World War II veteran, worked at Woolworths after the war. Here in Albuquerque, and then he went out to San Francisco in the late 40s and worked at the Woolworth store in San Francisco. Rode a motorcycle around San Francisco. This is about the time of Jack Kerouac and the Beats were just getting started, and they were out there. I wouldn't say, certainly my dad was not a Beat guy. He was straight-laced and ended up working a top secret job in the nuclear weapons industry here in Albuquerque. But in his post-war youth, he had his wild oats to sow, and he worked at Woolworths. So I thought that was pretty cool, a Woolworths tin. And there is some real faint writing that I can't quite make out, like a stamp. Anyway, it's right atop there, and I can't quite read it. But anyways, so these were the two gift typewriter tins that I got from John Lewis, and that was fantastic, John. He did such a great job, and he has a great way with people also. Okay, here's another thing. When I was preparing for the Type-In, as you might remember in some of my previous videos or blog articles, I had to get some postcards made. I had hired a graphic artist to design our logo, which was, the poster logo was that, right? And then the back side of it was that, and these were the postcards I had printed. And she had actually ordered them for me, and they were printed in a quantity of 1,000 postcards. Well, I did a pretty thorough job, I thought, of handing a lot of postcards out to a lot of different public venues around Albuquerque to get the word out, but I didn't have the ability to spread 1,000 postcards around. And so I still have this many postcards left from the Type-In, right? And it seems like a waste, because, you know, the top of the postcard has the date and time, and as well as the back of it has the date and time. Well, I can't even use these postcards for note paper, because they're printed on both sides. They're not blank, they're glossy, you can't write on them. I could make like a house of cards. I mean, what are you going to do with these, right? So then I got to thinking, well, I could get some adhesive stickers, adhesive labels, either make them up myself or have them printed, but just kind of a long, skinny labels that would just stick over this strip right here, and the same shape sticker would slip over this part to obscure the writing where it says first annual ABQ Type-In, Sunday, April 23rd at 1 p.m. I could just slap stickers on that has the date, time, and venue of the next Type-In, right? And so I hopefully will be able to reuse these cards, these note cards, and use them to advertise subsequent Type-Ins. So I have, like I say, this is probably 500 postcards. I don't know how many there is, but plenty of postcards for further marketing of more Type-Ins. Okay, another thing I wanted to talk about is future Type-Ins in Albuquerque. I think everybody who attended, most everybody was so enthused about it that they immediately were talking about, when are we going to do this again? And someone had made mention of the fact, we got to do this more often, like once a week or once a month. That's how fun everybody was having, how much fun everybody was having. I think my thoughts are right now that I'd like to have twice a year, maybe spring and fall, have this large public, well-advertised venue at a place like Nexus Brewery where we have food, drink available, as well as a large, sizable meeting room. But then I would like to have some kind of a more intimate setting that meets up more frequently, like on the order of once every quarter or even once a month. And maybe meeting at somebody's house. My house is fairly small, but I'd be willing to host a little gathering. And so those are my thoughts right now. I would like to get a little more impromptu typewriter gathering, and maybe it might be focused a little bit more on writing, creative writing, and maybe things like, so have like a Sunday afternoon, have a potluck, have people bring over food and drink or whatever, and you can have a creative writing focused meeting 1 month where you bring work you've been working on, or you just get together and start writing together. You could share what you're working on. You could just bring some typewriters and just write together, socially interact, have some food. But then you might also want to have another meeting where you might bring your machines and bring them out to the workshop if somebody has a garage with a little workbench, or put them on the kitchen table and tinker with them. Maybe some people are a little more adept at cleaning, lubricating, degreasing typewriters, and another person might have a typewriter they got that isn't working all that well. So we might be able to do these little intimate gatherings where we're helping each other get our typewriters in good order, and helping each other become better writers, helping each other facilitate our creative process and get to know each other better. So those are my thoughts, having these more frequent, more intimate gatherings, getting to know each other as a community of writers and typewriter aficionados. So another thing that I wanted to mention was, if you watched my previous video, which was the video about this Type-In, at the end of that video I read excerpts from a lot of the written pages, typed pages that were left on the tables at the Type-In, which I collected up. And I read some of these works, and some of them were a little bit erotic in nature. That's just the nature of some of the creative people that had gathered there, and I edited them for the audience, for my YouTube audience. So I kind of left out some of the more erotic parts. But what I was thinking, so I have all these pages, and there's a lot of just like test typing, the quick brown fox and all that kind of stuff. So it's not all of it is appropriate for gathering as creative writing. I mean, some of it's just random, random, not even words, just random testing, right? So, but I was thinking, what am I going to do with this stuff, right? So maybe I could try putting together a little blurb book or something with photos and some of the excerpts from this stuff. I don't know really what I'll do yet. See, it's not my writing, it's other people's writing, and I don't really know who wrote it. They didn't put their name on it. So there's a problem there about publishing some of it. And the other problem is I was shooting video and, of course, helping to facilitate the meeting. So I didn't have a chance to really take photos either. So I don't have any still photos to use. So I don't know. That was my idea. There's got to be something I can do with this stuff. These poems and little essays and little you know, paragraphs and just commentary and observations that people wrote impromptu. There's something I should be able to do with this, so I don't know. Going forward, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of potential for doing these kind of meetings more often, and maybe there's a way of using social media to enable people to share what they've typed. And one of the things that's, I mean, certainly we could use like Facebook or something, but I'm thinking something a little more appropriate for this purpose would be perhaps a discussion forum or something like that. Or even I could just create a blog for the type-ins, and people can send me stuff that they've written during type-ins, and I can post the type-in material on a blog. So I have a kind of a type-in blog, and have photographs and written material from other people who've participated, and including links to any videos I make on the subject. So anyway, that's one of the things I was thinking about in terms of what to do with this creative work. The other thing that I did that I didn't shoot video of on the last videos about the type-in was I had my Smith Corona Standard right there. I had that set up as a guest book, and I had a piece of paper threaded in it, and I asked everybody to type their email address if they want to be contacted with further news about upcoming typecasts or type-ins. And so I do have this list of email addresses, which is very cool. I think I should have probably also left a pen and a regular sheet of paper for people to write on, because some of the email addresses, I think I was able to decipher all of them, but some of them people had a problem. Like, for instance, this typewriter doesn't have the number 1, and if somebody has a number 1 in their email name, they might have typed, in this case somebody typed a capital I, another person typed the quote mark instead of the at symbol. But I think I'm able to decipher most of this, but it's just a thought to myself that I should have made an alternative way of people to write their email addresses other than typing it, right? Because not everybody is as familiar as us typewriter fanatics might be with using manual typewriters to actually record data that you need to read later on. So that was one other thought there. But I'm glad I have this list of contacts, so it's something to work on in terms of building up a local community. Speaking of local community, we had one participant in the type-in that came up from Las Cruces, New Mexico, which, if you're not familiar, that's a small town that's north of El Paso, right in the southern New Mexico. It's maybe, I don't know, 20 miles or from El Paso or something, 30 miles. Anyway, so it was nice to see somebody travel up from as far away as Las Cruces. That was very cool. So the video I made about the type-in, I realized the audio was really loud and echoey and boomy and all that. And I was using my external shotgun microphone, the Shure shotgun mic, mounted on top of this GH3 camera. I was using that during the type-in, and it's kind of directional toward the front in terms of its pickup pattern. But I realized when I was actually holding it and talking from behind the camera that because of the directionality of the audio, it wasn't getting my voice very loud, even though I was right next to it. And during those kinds of shooting scenarios, I really should have unplugged the microphone and just used the onboard mics on the camera, because they're right on top of the camera, right close to where I'm holding, and it would have been a much better audio. The room that we were at, though, was all hard surfaces, hard floor, ceiling, walls, everything bouncy and echoey, and no sound absorbing material, no carpet or anything. It was tile floor. So it was really a bad environment for sound. And going forward, I'm thinking I might even want to get a wireless lapel mic or something to use on this, to, if I'm interviewing somebody, to stick a wireless mic on them. I don't know, because it was really hard for you guys to hear that audio. I'm sure it was a little irritating, and I apologize for that. So one of the other learnings from the type-in was the space that we used at Nexus Brewery was adequate, but with the turnout we had a number of people that brought, 3, 4, 5, 6 typewriters, and we did not have enough room, table room for typewriters. And I'm sure some people were disappointed that they couldn't set up all their machines, and I really apologize for that. I didn't know what kind of turnout we would have. So it would be nice to have a bigger venue next time if we anticipate this same kind of a crowd. The other thing I was thinking about is, like in the case of my Hermes 3000, I brought 2 of them, the naked writer. It turned out that I left the carriage locked. And if you remember how those Hermes 3000s work, the buttons and knobs on the side of the carriage are really kind of cryptic. You have to really know how to operate it to unlock the carriage and even to move it. And if you push the wrong button, you'll reset the margins, right? Because it has that kind of magic margin feature. So I had inadvertently left the carriage locked on that typewriter, and as a consequence, nobody used it because they didn't know how to get it to work. So another little note I need to make myself is maybe make up a little instruction card that might have something specific about how to use this particular machine in case somebody wants to use it, because it was busy enough that I couldn't really watch everybody at once and see if they were having problems or needed assistance or whatever. So that's another thought, I wish we had more room for everybody's typewriter. And also because we were also not only typing but eating and drinking, we found that like I had typewriters set up in various places, but it turned out that my other typewriters were taking up table space from people who wanted to sit down and eat. So we had to like move some of my typewriters off the table so people could eat and all that. So it got to be almost not big enough of a space. So this raises the point of, as nice as I like Nexus Brewery, and by the way, their staff was so nice. And so we had a dedicated waitress, and she did a great job. And all of the food and drink that all of the patrons to the Type-In purchased from Nexus Brewery was well above the minimum level that we needed in order to not have to pay the rental fee on the room. So that was really good. Everybody patronized Nexus Brewery enough that it didn't cost us anything to have the room. But having said that, I would really like to maybe look for a bigger venue. But again, it has to be a place with good food and good drink. So that's going to be a problem, but a good problem. And I was initially worried that we wouldn't have a big enough turnout. And it turned out that I didn't have to worry about that at all. And it was a nice problem to have. So, but anyway, these are kind of rambling thoughts, reflections about our first Type-In here in Albuquerque. And I really have to give credit to the community of typewriter adepts over in Phoenix, Arizona, because I was inspired to host a Type-In here in Albuquerque because last August of 2016, I went over to Phoenix, my wife and I, and in spite of the summer heat of Phoenix, we enjoyed it, and we enjoyed meeting the community of typewriter aficionados over there, and to see how their Type-Ins have evolved over the few years they've held them. So it's been inspiring to me, and I really give thanks to the people over in Phoenix for their pioneering efforts in these Type-Ins. And until next time, hope you guys have a great day.